Okay. All right, let me go ahead and count this bad boy down. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Folks, this is Square Media Network. Very happy that you're here watching. I appreciate that as always. And as always, I'll ask that you subscribe to the show, like everything that you see, so forth. Is there something on? I thought I just heard something. Okay. 3, 2, and I'm on. Folks, this is Square Media Network. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. And this is National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Typically, we try to get as many shows in on the show that deal with that particular month. This time, we're not doing that. We have a lot of shows that talk about it, but tonight we're not talking about that. We have a very interesting topic. Great host who came here from, or guest on the show came in here from Atlanta. Mandisa, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
In the studio.
You are welcome. I mean, the idea that, listen, I'm glad you're here. Glad the trip was uneventful. But to come up from Atlanta, really from anywhere to come on the show, I think thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well, traveling is now a part of what I do as a full-time activist now. So it's just another part of my routine now. So,
right.
I mean, I just make it do what it do.
Right,
basically,
sure. No, absolutely.
Which is good.
How are you from Atlanta?
I'm originally from New York City.
You're from New York.
Jamaica, Queens, New York, but have been in the Atlanta area now for over 20 years.
Oh,
so
wow. Yeah.
One could say I'm from Atlanta now.
Yeah, just about. Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about yourself, though. You said you grew up in New York, right?
Yes.
Excuse me. Did you go to school there? Would you have undergrad or anything like that, or what?
All of my formative years were spent in New York City, and it's interesting that this is Child Abuse Awareness Month because I think the topic could tie into it somewhat. But I attended elementary, junior high
Right.
school. I actually am a graduate of the famous High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts, LaGuardia High School.
Okay.
So I was a vocal major. So I went to school in Manhattan, right behind Juilliard.
Right.
And I
right.
attended Queens College with the City of University of New York, and
Right.
then eventually moved to Atlanta with my family.
Right.
And so, yes, most of my, up until I was 21, was in New York. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That you either moved to Atlanta.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You and I met through now a mutual friend,
Yes.
Tina, and when she was on the show, she was like, Steve, I'm very nervous. I don't know what I'm going to say. Of course, that show went like an hour and a half.
Right.
Tina, you had a lot to say, didn't you?
Yes.
But,
And shout out to Tina.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
just love her to pieces.
This
Thank you
is
so
what's
much.
interesting to me, though, that enough people were surprised that I would have an atheist on the show. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I just don't see the issue with that. What is the issue? Well, they don't believe and they don't blah, blah, blah. But let me say this. We're going to get into that part of it a little bit later.
Yes.
But I'm always amazed by what people think I should have on the show.
Well, we're not. We're not. I mean, I'm telling you, that's just the honest truth.
Right.
That we're not surprised at all that your
Wow.
listeners expressed some concern about that. But that's unfortunate. Well, that's one of the reasons why we keep going, though.
I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you. So first thing we're going to get into is the. Actually, let me go back a little bit. Somewhere on your page, Facebook, somewhere it says, "I am omnisexual. I am human rights. I am atheist. I am black. I am love. I am free of doctrine." Mm-hmm. Could you explain those to me?
Yes. So that phrase was a part of a Revolution in Photography campaign that was launched by a colleague within the secular community, Robert Affinis. He's with the Affinis Humanity Coalition, and it was an effort to have people just profess their identities.
Right.
What they identified as far as their sexual identity, and then their perspective and whether their racial identity as well.
Sure.
And so the two constants were human rights and love, because it actually wasn't just exclusive to atheists or humanists per se. One could be Christian and also participate.
Okay.
And I chose omnisexual because when I thought about my path and my upbringing, as
Right.
well as my sexual identity, that was the one that stuck with me the most. And I made sure I looked it up before I used it.
Right. Right.
There's also the similar definition is pansexual.
Yeah.
And so I use those interchangeably, omni or pansexual,
Okay.
as an identity. And I appreciate that he and I became partners in this movement. He connected with me and my organization as well.
Right.
And so this was just a really, really good opportunity for people to really express that part of their identity and humanity.
Right. Okay.
And it was just a really, really good. Yeah, sometimes I will change that to my cover photo, if you will, because I've gotten some interesting questions behind that, whether it's through Facebook Messenger or on the post itself. And there, people will ask me, well, what does omnisexual mean? And so
That was going to be my question.
yeah, so I'll get into that.
Okay.
So omni or pansexual is the potential attraction to any sexuality or gender identity, meaning that one could be attracted to someone who, it says asexual here, someone who was bisexual, or they could be attracted to other women, men, etc. It's
Right.
it's not. It's definitely you are. You are pretty much open and attracted to almost anyone, or you could be.
And that's omnisexual.
Yes, omni. Yes, pansexual. Yeah, it's they're both pretty much the same thing. And it's interesting that someone who is asexual does not experience sexual attraction at all. So there's different
Right,
forms
right,
of
right.
identities
Right.
that are out there. It's
Yep.
not just your gay, straight, lesbian, and such. So there's different parts of the spectrum here.
But you know what's bad and sad too, though? We think that everybody should be the same, whatever that same is. There's a man. It can't be any. You can't deviate from that. You're a woman, and you can't deviate from that. Men should be attracted to women, and that's it. That's the way it should be.
Right. And there was also a time where when someone was labeled or they identified as gay or, being attracted to other or homosexual, that you were only supposed to be attracted to that one, the same sex.
Right.
But there's different, there's different forms of the spectrum, that there are, bisexual men, bisexual women. There's someone who could be attracted to someone who was transsexual.
Right.
And, years, unfortunately, not in the not too distant past, being transsexual or what would be called a transvestite was seen as deviant.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so now we're understanding that times have changed, and that you aren't a deviant simply because you don't identify as the heterosexual.
Right. Yeah.
And that there's all different there's a bunch of information, and then some people may find that they may fall into that spectrum, which could
Right.
be scary.
Right,
It's a
right.
scary thing to understand that you may not be just as what you quote consider normal, but what is normal anymore?
Right.
So,
right.
it's been really, it's been a good, not just education, but realization.
There's one that just popped in my head, and I read about this several weeks ago, but it's a person that doesn't identify with any sex or gender. Does that ring a bell to you at all?
I don't know what the term for that is,
Okay.
but I imagine that there is one.
There's this
for
one
it.
person. I still don't know if that person is a man or woman. Not that it matters. and they're big activists for that. I can't think of this person's
Yeah. Well, people are going into the non-binary stages now.
non-binary.
Yeah,
There we
non-binary.
go.
People
Yeah.
are, they're identifying as they. They
Right.
don't want to be identified
As
with
him or her.
one. Right.
Okay.
So their pronouns now are they as opposed to him, her, he, she, etc. So yes, that is non-binary.
Wow.
Yeah. Didn't think black folks could talk about this stuff, could we? No, just kidding.
I mean,
But,
listen, I'm glad.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad that we can't. I mean, it's not like. Listen, we can't continue to.
We can't continue to put ourselves in these boxes,
Right,
and
right.
especially for the black community. Let's just talk about it. We have these issues when it comes to sex and sexuality.
Right.
We're still dealing with a very disproportionately high number of STI cases, HIV and AIDS cases, pregnancy cases. Now, I think teen pregnancy is down overall, but we still don't talk about sex, sexuality,
Right.
and birth control, all of these things that pertain to just being human beings.
Right.
We don't have these conversations in a way that is comprehensive and objective. Now, we may gossip about this stuff.
Oh yeah, all day.
We'll talk about it, dishing dirt and
Yep.
such, but how is that helpful to not just our well-being, but our children's
Right.
as well?
Yep, yep.
And we need to be having these conversations in ways that aren't shaming anyone.
Right.
Conversations about body positivity, even when we try to focus on our health. And healthy sexual expression.
Right.
We aren't having these conversations as well as we should.
Why do you think we're not?
Well, because there's been a stigma surrounding
So
black
we fell into a
sexuality.
norm.
I think we have fell into our own norm
Yeah.
that has been pretty harmful to us. And I think there is an institutional factor
Right.
where it comes
Yep.
to especially black women being fetishized and only being sexually objected.
Right.
And in this still very highly patriarchal society where women still are viewed as objects, and the moment we start to assert ourselves, then we're these bitches, right? How dare we assert ourselves? We're supposed to, we're supposed to, give these men what they desire, but then once we do, then we're hoes, So it's just this double standard that we're dealing with all the time.
Right.
And
Right.
And also it's harmful for men and males as well, because then there's the conversations, not having the conversations about how men are supposed to feel,
Right.
and how you're supposed to reciprocate affection, can get what they want without it only serving them.
Let me ask you something. Do you think? I mean, the letters now are LGBTQ.
IA.
And it goes
Yes.
on and on and on and on.
Yes.
And I'm hoping someday it's going to be one. Well, I hope it's going to be one, but
It probably never will be.
right,
Yeah.
right. So there's several categories that people are in, right?
Yes.
Could there be more categories?
Oh, absolutely. You have your bi-curious, hetero-flexible. I saw one video where there were identities for every letter of the alphabet.
Okay.
When it came to sexual identities.
Right.
And for me, it's like, oh boy, it's a lot.
Yeah.
We're in this age of information, as well as respecting where people are, and also respecting the evidence.
Right.
And understanding what it means, and that, people should be respected where they are. If someone is identifying as a woman and they've been they've been through an operation, or they're transsexual in any way, you respect that identity. It isn't for you. It isn't for your benefit.
Right.
It is for the person who is identifying, and you don't have the right to tell them that they shouldn't identify and also demonize. And with the more information we have, and I think that and it's still very new areas, right? There are people who are still coming to these identities and coming to understand them, and so maybe one day they could be a bit more condensed in a way. But until then, the more information you have, the better.
I think it's funny, funny, sad, amazing, all kinds of things that when kids are growing up, they could be 7, they could be 10. A lot of them, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of them already know then that they are whatever. But because of how we are in society, we are suppressing that. And then later on in life, they come out and, hey, sorry, but
and unfortunately, some children never do. And there are some cases of suicide.
Right.
And this ties into the child abuse awareness piece.
That's true.
Because there are a lot of parents who will browbeat and abuse their children because of their sexual identities or what they think they're becoming, because somehow they don't think that children are astute enough to assert. And with the way children are now, even with the way we were back then, some of us may have sensed it, but of course, because of what you were supposed to be, you suppressed it.
Right, sure.
And unfortunately, the more conservative and unfortunately the more religious some households are, the harder these conversations become. And yes, there are some children who, they will struggle. I remember my daughter started a Pride Club when she was in high school, and there were some young people who attended the club meetings, and they were 14. They were still in their formative years in high school, and they knew, and they couldn't tell their parents. And so having these support systems, even if they're in confidence, is very, very important.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a little pause there for a second, but my daughter is gay, and listen, don't beat me up. Sometimes I get the terms mixed up.
That's okay.
So sorry about that, folks. But she was. Now, this is the funny thing. She is a daddy's girl. And at the time, I was in the Navy. I was the guy. I was like a Navy SEAL to her. I wasn't, but I was like that to her. So she had a very, very difficult time coming out to tell me. And I finally retired. And she said, "You mean that's it?" I said, "Yeah, that's it." She's like, "I've been wasting all these years, because I just didn't know how you were going to take it." I said, "Honey, I don't care. Just be happy. I don't care who you date, but trust and believe that no matter who you're dating, I'm going to treat them the same way, no matter what their gender is. You have to understand that.
Right.
So they may get cussed out by me if they do something wrong.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was our moment,
Good.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
And ideally, that is what should happen.
Right. Well, thank God I was open enough.
Yeah.
I had experienced a lot of things by being in the Navy and traveling and being with different groups of people, different cultures, all those things that helped me out tremendously.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
The and let me share this story with you. A friend of mine, he is a lot more religious than me, and he and I often have these conversations. And he said, and he didn't know my daughter was gay at the time. He said, "Man, I don't know what I would do if one of my kids came and they said that they were gay." And I said, let me throw this at you real quick. I said, "Do you love your kids?" He's like, "Absolutely." I said, "But you love your kids with a caveat."
Right.
He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're saying I love you, but."
Right.
I said, "Why put a but into that?"
Exactly.
And he thought about that. He literally thought about it for a few minutes. Like, I never looked at it that way.
It also speaks to this idea of ownership of children by parents. That some parents cannot see their children as individuals, especially as they get older. So if whatever they may decide to do, or if they come to the realization that they are gay.
Right.
The parent
Excuse me.
takes it personal as if they did something wrong. And it's
That
like,
is
well,
true.
you're assuming that there's something wrong with being gay.
Right. Right.
And there isn't.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's just, there's a lot that I think there are so many parents that need to really, really reassess what they, and it's been passed down.
Right.
You know, as it's seen as something wrong.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And to have another sexual identity or what is considered an alternative
Yeah. Because it
way
should
of
be it should only
being.
be two.
Right. You're only supposed to be with a man, or you're only supposed to be with a man, or you're supposed to be with another woman.
Right.
It's supposed to be man, woman, and you're supposed to be monogamous.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like
that's exactly
anything
right.
else is, you know,
Yep.
even though throughout history that hasn't always been the case.
No.
So this is nothing new.
No, it's not.
That we're dealing with.
No.
It's just more prevalent now. The conversations are really starting to happen, and the identities are starting to come forth now. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of parents who have to check themselves on it.
That is true. Yep, that is so true. Of course, we still have a long way to go with that. But as I was saying before, I'm still amazed that it seems like every week there's another letter put on to
Yes.
you know, I'm like,
The
now
LGBTQ.
what is this one?
Right.
I don't know, but I'll add it too, I guess.
Right. And then, you know, there's queer, there's just all sorts of
But the one you just mentioned, though, that one kind of something neutral.
non-binary.
I'm sorry, not non-binary.
That's an
right.
identity.
Right.
You know, that's or non-identity, because there's sexualities and then there's gender identities.
Right.
And, you know, they used to be combined, or,
Right.
you know, if someone was gay, then they were this, and then
Right.
that isn't, or if a man decided to change into, you know, to transform into a woman,
Right.
then all of a sudden that meant, you know, something else. And it's like, no, that it's just the gender identity. And so
Right,
there
right.
are differences between the two. And it's a lot to learn.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's important to learn it.
How far, excuse me, how far do you think we have to go before it becomes more normal?
Hopefully before this planet blows up. I'm just kidding, but, you know,
Okay.
I'm not sure. I what I've seen is that, you know, I'm 42, so I'm
Right.
considered Gen X.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
think many
yeah.
of us, you know, we're sort of that cross generation. You know,
Right,
we
right.
have seen some of the older, but yet we grew up in the 80s, 90s. So, you know, we understand a lot more
Yeah.
than the previous
Sure.
generation.
My generation,
And so,
yeah.
the baby boomers. So-
There we go. Yep.
But I'm just hoping that, and I am of the mindset that no one is too old to learn anything.
I agree with that.
And it's always a good idea to reassess, no matter, you know, who you are and how old you are, because sometimes the elders are wrong.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah.
They're wrong. I'm not, no offense, but sometimes you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And there were a lot of things that were passed down that people just did simply because they were told.
Right.
And without having any good information. And so hopefully, and I'm not saying everyone's going to get there, but
No.
hopefully the more people who remain as, you know, open-minded, or at least open to new information,
Right.
there'll be a better understanding.
So let me ask you this though:
Mm-hmm.
how much does religion play into all of this?
Oh boy, do we have time for that? It really does play quite a bit, especially the Judeo-Christian religions, because
okay.
Christianity in particular, there's a very, very homophobic stance, a very misogynistic stance.
Let me stop you for a second. I guess one of the things that gets me about that is you hear a lot of people say, "The Lord said,"
Yep.
and I have often, ever since I was kind of woke up or I had my awakening, questioned that. I'm like, how do you know that?
Right.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Well, yeah, I did mean to cut you off. But the religious aspect, right? Somehow, do you believe that needs to be rewritten, or Well, first of all, I know you don't believe in it, right?
Yes, I'm an atheist. Correct.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, how do you think that should be handled? But I guess your answer would be
Well, here's
just
my
totally
thing.
get rid of it. But-
Well, I will not. I will not say that that's far off the mark. However, being a realistic person,
yeah.
I would say that there are many people who it's never good to follow anything blindly, and that doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a believer or not. And there are, as human beings, we do have a tendency to kind of be intellectually lazy. We want information spoon-fed to us and handed to us. We don't want to necessarily think about things too hard.
Yeah.
But it's always, I think it's important for people to be honest that
Sure.
if you engage someone who does not identify as you, and you see the type of person that they are, and it does conflict with what you've been taught to believe, it may be a painful process, but it's important for you to reassess that.
Could be, yeah.
And really, Judeo-Christian religions, it's very, very dogmatic against the LGBT community, the LGBTQ community.
Why is that?
Well, because there are some passages, there's one passage in the Bible that, what does that say? Man shall not lie with other man, or something like that. It's in the Old Testament right now. I'm not a Bible scholar, so I'm not going to debate the Bible, but I know about some things that's
Damn it,
in
I'm
there.
going to debate it. No, kidding.
But there is something, unfortunately, in that book and other religious texts that can justify actions or thoughts, whether they're good or harmful towards other people. And they'll call it to say that it was their, the Lord said.
Right.
For example, people tend to forget that the Ku Klux Klan was a Christian organization.
That's
that
exactly
it
right.
is a Christian organization.
Yep.
They aren't a Nazi group. They aren't what is considered a Satanist group.
Right.
They were a Christian group.
There you go.
And they felt like they were doing their Christian duty.
That's
and
right.
there was something in there that they could justify in that Bible. And that's just the real of it.
But you can pick so many things from there. And
You
just say,
can.
this is from the Bible. This is what it says. This is what we have to do.
Correct. And
not so much.
it's just right. And it's now whether it's the right thing to do, not so much. And just as a human being, like if you have any sort of empathy whatsoever, and you definitely don't have to believe in a God to care about other individuals. And I think that is a huge misconception about atheism and what it means to be an atheist.
Okay, let's back up for a second.
Yeah.
And finish. So I want to make sure that we finish the sexuality portion.
Yes.
We could go back and forth,
But
no, I don't want to really do that. So I've got gray sexual down here, but what is that exactly?
What is it? A gray sexual is someone occasionally experiencing sexual attraction. And that's also another interesting
Basically,
aspect
when you
to
reach
sexuality. What, your sex drives goes with your hair or something?
Maybe.
What it is?
I have a head full of hair. Thank you.
That's so funny. But I just think, because and it's interesting how religion tends to demonize sexuality and how it's so repressive, but yet there is this spin and this guilt that is put on, things that are totally natural and normal. And so it's interesting to see how when you, I've had people ask me, so, well, does that mean you just sleep with anything if you're omnisexual? I'm like, no. And the same thing was thought of when it came to gay and lesbians. Right. That if you were gay, then all of a sudden you were just going to hit on your best friend. And it's like, oh, no, that doesn't mean that. It was. You have so many. You have so many interesting thoughts. People's minds tend to go right in the gutter.
Right. It's funny you say that because I remember we were talking about marijuana on the show, one of the shows, and how it was outlawed way back in the day, and blah blah blah. And it was outlawed when the Mexicans brought it here from Mexico,
right?
And they thought it was such a horrible, horrible thing. when we in fact already had it in many of our medicine cabinets.
Yep.
But I guess it was called something different.
Right.
And I'm like, so you're going to call it, you're going to say what they're bringing is illegal and wrong and outlaw it, but you've got it in your medicine cabinet.
Well, it hadn't been sanctioned. So that's the thing, If it hadn't been sanctioned or if it isn't legal,
Right.
then, or if the government can't make money off of it.
It's about that damn dollar.
Absolutely. That's right.
Wow.
That's what it usually boils down to.
So pansexuality, we talked about that already.
Uh-huh.
Polysexuality is defined as an attraction to more than one gender. Usually, aren't all of these things kind of meshed?
They are, but usually the poly is usually used with like polyamory, that the ability to love more than one person at a time.
That's a lot of people.
And, yeah, and
I love you too.
Right, but there's this idea that we're supposed to be monogamous or just
Right.
absolutely love one person for the rest of our lives. And I think for many human beings, it is an unrealistic expectation. I think one that has also been brought on by religion, even though
Right.
older religions and older cultures actually embraced, there was a lot of polygamy where
Right.
a man could have more than one wife or one
Right.
partner.
Yeah.
And there are some polyandrous where the woman can have more than one partner, and I think
wow.
now there's more of an embrace, and which I advocate for polyamory,
Right.
that there is no one human being that can satisfy every single thing, and it doesn't mean sexual.
Right,
That's
of
the
course,
thing,
of course.
love doesn't it isn't just about physical
Right.
love. It can also mean like other types of support.
Sure.
So usually poly is used with polyamory,
Gotcha,
with the amorous
gotcha.
word, because an attraction to more than one gender, that could be, but
Yeah.
that usually means you're polyamorous as well, that you
Right.
that you are attracted to, or you have strong feelings for more than one individual,
Right.
which there's nothing wrong with. But I think, the problem is that it's been slanted towards favoring men as opposed to women.
Right, right.
Women are just supposed to be available for the men,
Right.
but women are not supposed to be attracted to more than one person. How dare you?
What is your problem?
Right. Or it's like, if a woman approaches the conversation with a man, it's like their feelings are hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, wait, I'm not enough for you. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Right. That's exactly right. Maybe not. Wow.
So and it's okay. It shouldn't be a blow to your ego,
Right.
as long as the communication is kept, which unfortunately, as human beings, we have a tendency.
We're not good at it,
no.
especially men. Men are not good at it.
Yeah,
I'll be the
I
first
have
to
agree
admit
with
that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you consider yourself pansexual?
Pansexual. I guess I could be considered sexual as well. I mean, not without incriminating myself.
But these
in
are
any way,
blurred
but yeah.
lines, though, right?
Well, they're sort of not. They're kind of so.
Because omni comes into play too.
Yes, pan and omni are pretty much the same.
Right.
But also, if it's you could be attracted to one, but then also you can be multiple. So I may be poly.
So pan and
or
omni are like identical
poly-omni.
twins.
Yes,
And they look just a little
different.
Yeah.
It's more of quantity.
Okay.
It's more than anything else. So, I could be
Well,
considered
so-
poly pan, I guess.
So let me ask you this:
Yeah.
When did you realize you were omni, poly, or pan? Shit,
It
whatever.
was about a few years ago.
Okay.
I thought about like my childhood and my upbringing and some thoughts
Sure.
and feelings that I had.
Yeah.
And remembering thinking that perhaps it could be wrong, because
Right.
even though I wasn't formally raised religious,
Right.
my mother told me and my brothers that if we ever brought home anyone gay, she would disown us.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I was, hearing different things about what sexuality meant.
Right.
And then also understanding that I do come from a family that unofficially had these identities.
Sure,
Like
okay.
I had bi aunts and uncles, and cousins, and a lot of my cousins are gay.
Right.
And so really examining that along with my upbringing, as well as what I was able to understand about myself as an individual.
Right.
In 2012, when I was approached to do that project
Right.
or participate in it, when I thought about it, I just said, well, that sounds
That's-
right. That
that's
sounds
kinda
like
me.
me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I don't really have, and then thinking about a lot of the things that I had let go of, as far as being more liberated sexually, mentally, emotionally. It allowed me to understand that there are a lot of variables,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not up to me to care so much about what a person what a conclusion that a person comes to that is informed.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that it doesn't take away my like or love for them.
Right,
So,
right,
and really embracing that, it was extremely. So it was about 7 years ago.
So let me ask you this: that was probably it was probably a moment of enlightenment for you.
Oh,
think?
yes.
But I'm sure there was more than just that one, or was it just one?
Well, it was. I've had a number of enlightening moments
Right.
throughout my life,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think for that particular one, it was when I just decided to come out with it and say, "Bam, here it is."
Yeah, yeah.
And it was not just enlightening for me, but it was liberating.
Sure,
What
right,
was
right.
great was that I was able to put a definition with a term that I wasn't just making it up. So it was already out there,
Yep.
and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, this validates what I thought,
Right.
and it fit what I thought. So
Sure,
I said, yes, that
sure.
is that's it.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you're welcome. You're welcome. We're probably going to come back to this a little bit, but let's talk a little bit about atheists.
Okay.
And I'll just read
Yeah.
this for the folks who are watching. Atheism is in the broadest sense the absence of belief in the existence of deities. Less broadly, atheism is the rejection of belief that any deities exist. That makes sense.
That's right.
Is that fair?
It's a very, very simple definition.
Right.
For me, I tend to define it as non-belief in any gods, spirits, or supernatural beings, meaning that it goes beyond your Jesus, Allah, and
Right.
such. We also don't believe in ghosts, or for the most part anyway, ghosts, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, anything
What?
that's considered. I know, right? You know, what's interesting is that how many people don't realize how atheist they are towards other beings.
Okay.
You know, but that's a scary thought.
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
even if you may believe in this one thing, but you don't believe in those others.
Right.
So we're not as different.
So that's a form of atheism, I guess.
It can be.
Can be, yeah.
Yes. Someone is atheist towards another either position or another belief.
Right.
That you don't believe in it, but yet we just happen to go one
Sure.
or a few deities further.
Yep. I had some ladies on the show who were from India, and we got on the thing of religion and talking about being Hindu. And I said something about the religion, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, see, first of all, Hindu is not a religion, it's a way of life. I said, oh, okay. I said, hey, I like that definition. He said, and then secondly, we have like 32 million gods.
Yeah.
Like, what? So,
It's very polytheistic, and
Right,
even Christianity is
right.
polytheistic if you think about it.
yeah.
But it is
Yeah.
interesting how a Christian would say, "What? Like what you believe is ridiculous."
Yeah. There's only one God.
Right.
Okay. I mean, anyway,
And it's
whatever you
interesting
believe.
that Hinduism would be considered a way of life, considering in India they do have like caste systems,
Exactly.
almost similar to what and
The
America
slavery
would like.
sy-
Yeah, America
right.
would like to think that they don't have a caste system, but yeah,
oh.
right.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting that is a way of life,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for some of that we question it.
Right.
You know,
right.
we question that why should that be a way of life for people to be on the bottom
Right.
simply because a god or multiple gods dictated, so
Yeah. But that was, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
No,
thought that was amazing when they told me 32 million. Whatever
Yeah.
the number was, it was a ton.
Right.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And the guy, it was two women on the show, and the guy, one of the husband was like, "It's 32 million, but it always increases." Really? Okay. Hey, whatever works for you.
And that is
good.
just interesting to see how that has evolved or changed. It's like,
Right.
wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. I am finding more and more people that have this feeling and believe that kind of live and let live kind of attitude,
Yes.
which is kind of cool. It doesn't mean that they don't care about anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But there, some people are just getting so tired of this belief in something, and then that's something never ever working.
Yes, there is, and we do question that whole power of prayer,
Right.
And how selective it tends to be. It's like the lottery, it's like, well,
Okay.
you might be able to pray over something that would be considered trivial, but yet sometimes no amount of prayer in the world can stop something so tragic from happening. And it doesn't mean that, well, you
Right.
got what you deserve.
Right.
It just means that it happened and it was tragic,
Yeah.
and that it's okay.
I think Tina brought
to
up
feel.
slavery.
Oh gosh, yes.
I think
We
she
could
did.
rehash that too.
Yeah.
I mean, and that also comes into question the relationship of religion, especially Christianity, with the Black community,
Right,
and
right.
understanding how this particular religion was imposed, and that the church sanctioned the human trafficking.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
trying to understand that and compartmentalize that. I learned about that early on.
Right,
and
right.
So I said, Jesus is one God I would never worship.
Right.
And so and yes, slavery was one of the and slavery, and there have always been forms of enslavement.
Sure. Oh yeah.
But when it comes to the perpetual and
Right,
chattel slavery
right,
that was
exactly.
inflicted
Yep.
upon our ancestors,
Yep.
that is a very, and a lot of, even some Christians, I've seen Christians question this too. Now
Right.
they're starting to question that part too.
Yeah.
And but what's good about that is to see people's wheels turning.
I know.
And these are the types
totally
of
agree with
discussion.
that.
I think it's important for people to be honest about why they believe something.
Right.
What were those factors?
Mm-hmm.
And in most of our cases, it's tradition.
It sure is.
And
It sure is.
yeah, and I try to be a live and let live person until you decide that your beliefs are more important than my right to be.
Exactly,
That's when we see religion being infused into public policy, that is ultimately harmful to everyone. Your
true.
religious beliefs
Yeah.
do not have the right to sanction law. It's the reason why church and state should be separate. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But it never is.
No, unfortunately it isn't.
Right.
And that's why there are now more people speaking up about that and
Right.
fighting against it.
Yeah.
And it's not just
But I mean, let me just say this too. I
Mm-hmm.
think the people that are really speaking up about that are the what age group is that going to be? What's the latest one?
the millennials.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they really, really are.
There's a study that there was a new research study that showed that millennials, and particularly Black millennials, are leaving the church
Yeah,
in record numbers. And because I think a part of it is that whole fire and brimstone, if you don't believe you're going to hell
Right.
sort of thing, it just isn't working anymore. And
no.
I've seen the churches as well as like the music kind of tailor their message now.
Oh, sure. Yeah, for sure.
But there are, even if some are just leaving religion altogether and dumping the God concept, some still believe in some sort of spirituality.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
this idea that as a people that we are just supposed to hold on to this thing,
Right.
until we die.
That is true.
And I know we're in the Bible Belt here,
Mm-hmm.
from Atlanta
Yeah, we're
and to
deep in
Charlotte.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is just overwhelming.
Right. It is. Yeah, it is. Let me read this part too. It says atheism is one thing, a lack of belief in God. Atheism is not an affirmative belief that there is no God, nor does it answer any question about what a person believes. It is simply a rejection of the assertion that there are gods. Atheism is too often defined incorrectly as a belief system. To be clear, atheism is not a belief in gods or a denial of gods. It is a lack of belief in God.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. And I personally try to stay away from the word belief, simply because, I mean, there are some things I'm not afraid to say I don't know.
Right, right, yeah.
Do I absolutely know for sure there is no God? No.
Right.
Do I care? Not really.
Yeah.
If there, I mean, if there is, then fine. They need to show themselves, and if so, I have a lot of questions.
Right. Sure.
So yeah, I mean, but also too, that is just one identity. Now there are a lot. I also identify as humanist because that does describe what I do, or what my perspective is.
Sure.
And
Okay.
also identify as a skeptic, or
Yeah.
something like that. So, but yes, atheist at its core is just simply the lack of belief in any gods.
Right.
That's it. But it is such a powerful word in the way that is stigmatizing.
Yeah.
There are so many people who are afraid of the word because they've been taught to be afraid of it.
Yeah.
That somehow it's like, oh my gosh, you're going to get struck by lightning if you stand by one of us. But there's so much negative power put into the word.
It is.
But and which is unfortunate. And does that mean that I like all atheists? No.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I speak for all of us.
Yeah.
And also because there are a lot of atheists who espouse some things that I don't like.
Right. Sure.
And we definitely don't agree with each other a lot. But as far as just the simple definition, that's it. But some people are like, well, it takes so much to not believe, and you put so much into it, so it is a belief system.
Right.
Recently there was a gentleman who came to one of my presentations and all this. He said, "You're just trying to make all these people atheists." I'm like, what? No, not really.
Right.
There are some people who may never be, and that's okay. But what should also be okay is my assertion of the identity, and for people to understand it. And if they also identify, or if they come to that conclusion as well, then that's fine too.
Have you been called lost?
Oh my gosh. Now, I was told that I had a slave mentality back in 2015. There was a Christian woman. There's a video clip of it online.
Really?
Yes. It was at a conference, there was an atheist conference and a Christian conference, Women of Color in Ministries. And this woman was so upset. I mean, she was aggravated by the presence of our organization.
But this conference was what again?
There was a Women of Color in Ministries conference.
Okay.
And then there was also the Atheist Alliance of America's conference. So
together?
In the same space.
In the same space?
It was in the same space.
Was that on purpose?
Well, hey, hotels want to make money.
Oh,
so,
okay. So,
yeah.
But what I'm saying is...
there was, it just so happened, it was coincidence that...
Wow.
We were, in the same space at the same time.
That was ordained by God.
Right.
So just had to throw that piece in there, people.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, this woman said I had a slave mentality, that she was going to bathe me in the blood of Jesus, that she felt sorry for my mama and my kids. I mean, I told her I felt sorry for her, but she was like, does your mama know you out here doing this? I mean, she was terrible. She was absolutely horrendous.
She wasn't very Christian, was she?
No, not at all. No. Or maybe she was to some extent, depending on what part of the Bible she followed. But
right.
But yeah, no, for what some of the Jesus loving Christians claim they are.
Right.
No, she was not at all.
Wow.
So that was kind of funny.
Hallelujah.
Right.
Ooh.
And there were other Christians who were embarrassed by her behavior.
Right.
Because I mean, I don't know how I handled that so well, because it didn't feel like it. But yes, they were like, yikes. that was kind of scary. But yes, there are, and sometimes we receive correspondence in which people tell us, that we need to repent and
Right.
turn our lives over to Christ or God or etc.
Right.
And that we're just looking to do whatever we want. There's all sorts of things that we may encounter as a
Looking to
result.
do whatever you want. I mean, aren't most people looking to do whatever they want?
I mean, yeah, people do whatever
Really?
they right. I mean, that's the funny thing, because I found many Christians will just do what they want anyway.
Right.
And then we'll just, I guess, pray for forgiveness later. That there's no accountability there that, oh, well, as soon, or if a Catholic says Hail Marys, or if a Christian prays on it, then all of a sudden it's like that revolving door, of, I can just say I'm sorry, and then that's it.
Let me ask you this. I don't know how much you know about history. What was around before the Bible? Do you know? And I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, I'm kind of sort of a history nerd and a history buff. And, you had different cultures that had their different religions. And so, for example, actually the story of Jesus is kind of made up of different older religions.
Right.
The story of Horus from Egyptian mythology is, there's the Immaculate Conception story there. There's also an Immaculate Conception in Hinduism with Krishna. And so there were older religions. And so all of those predate Christianity, and that's those stories and that folklore goes back thousands of years before the story of the Bible, which is basically and also before Christianity was Judaism, because basically the Old Testament is the Torah. So there are many older religions and and systems of thought that people believed that the study of different religions and theologies would probably take, oh my gosh, I don't know how long it would take, but it's a very comprehensive study of different beliefs and thought systems. And I was an avid reader growing up. I used to read some Greek mythology, African mythology, and such. And so really there's a lot of religions that are older than and that Christianity borrowed from.
Yeah. So tell me this then, if you know, then why was Christianity invented?
Well,
and I know that could be a lot of different answers for that. But what is your belief? What do you think?
Well, as with most things that go over time, there's a want for people to, I guess. Thank you. It is a little hot in here, but
Get right
there is a want for people to kind of, develop their own belief system,
right?
Or it may be in their own, like a lot of Roman mythology borrows from Greek mythology, and so many of the stories they just change the names of gods, and usually what is the phrase? Whoever those who win the wars get to tell. Their side of the story. And so I think that is the case for many. And also we can look to some, I guess, Christian history and King Constantine, the councils of Nicaea, where it was decided what would go in the Bible and what wouldn't. And so Christianity in particular, I do think was a method of controlling people. And which most religion is, but Christianity in particular, especially as it was sanctioned by the Roman Empire, and as Catholicism gave birth, it was definitely a control mechanism for the masses of people and for the Catholic Church to rise to power. It didn't become one of the richest institutions, for nothing.
Right.
And so
richest and the most controlling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to process in that, and it's important for people to do that.
Wow. This. But I'm sorry. This is just one of those things that I love discussing, the historical aspect of all of this, and I've been trying to get a PhD in the Bible, I guess. I really want to I want to look at the Bible as layers. So that person can tell me, this is what happened here. This is the development of that, blah, 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 blah. You're kind of hitting it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm not sure if there will ever be a complete answer.
No,
Because,
there's not.
No, there won't be. The
No, I
Bible
realize
has
that.
been, and then also the King James version of the Bible, which has been transcribed from older languages.
Right.
So there is no real clear definition. So it's subject to wide interpretation.
It is. It
And
is.
this is
Yeah.
why you have many different sects of Christianity itself, because one group may look at the Bible and interpret it one way,
That's
and
right.
another group is interpreting it another way.
Yeah.
But everyone wants to believe that their interpretation is
It's
correct.
the right one. That's exactly right.
And so, but yet when you have a book that is loosely transcribed and it hasn't really been updated in almost 400 years.
Wow.
So there's just the it's very interesting to me as well to listen to some folks who, especially remember during slavery, it was illegal for our ancestors to be taught to read and write.
Oh, and yeah, true.
So
yeah.
for the number of people who say that they can transcribe that Bible, I mean, I have tried, I'm an avid reader, and I tried to just read the Bible like as a book.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh my God, how can anyone follow this? And there's just it's no wonder
Yeah.
why so many Christians really don't know it.
Yeah.
You know, they go by what they've been taught.
Yeah.
And they'll go to a certain passage. And that book is very, very, I mean, I know there are many fellow atheists who said they became atheists by reading the Bible.
Right. Yeah, I've heard
So,
that.
I mean, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it does happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's read on here. Let me see what I got. Atheism is not a belief system, nor is it a religion. While there are some religions that are atheistic, Buddhism, for example, that does not mean that atheism is a religion. To put it in a more humorous way, if atheism is a religion, then not collecting stamps is a hobby.
Now, what we have done,
Damn it.
we have, right, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with collecting stamps, you know?
Right. Oh my God. So, despite the fact that atheism is not a religion, atheism is protected by many of the same constitutional rights that protect religion. That, however, does not mean that atheism is itself a religion, only that our sincerely held lack of beliefs are protected in the same way as religious belief of others. Similarly, many interfaith groups will include atheists. This again does not mean that atheism is a religious belief. You get that, people? You get it?
Yes. That is
Just
correct.
Wanted to throw that out there.
Right. And you see this a lot in the Unitarian Universalism sect, that there are many atheists who will belong to those congregations. And
And what sect? What is that called?
Unitarian Universalism.
Is that new? Or how
Oh, no,
new is
it's old. It's
It is very old.
It dates back to like the 1800s.
Okay.
It is it's more of a sort of there's still like some spirituality incorporated, but
Right.
yes, the Unitarian Universalist Church is just as old as like Baptists, you know,
Sure.
Baptists and
Yeah.
Methodists and such. It's been around for a number of years.
Interesting. So here's my questions for you. When bad things happen, what do atheists say? Do they say, "Oh my God"?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes we say,
That's
"Oh
right.
shit."
Right.
Oh shit. Sometimes we may say, God damn it. I know I've said that before. But yeah, sometimes we may use a couple of other curse words too
Right,
that,
right.
you know, so you know that we can't, you know, that you just shouldn't say. But oh
Right.
yeah. Sometimes we may, you know, it may slip out.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't mean that the word has any power to it. But
Sure,
yeah.
I get that.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, I know I've said God damn it a couple of times.
That
So
is funny. When you feel hopelessness, who do you ask for help?
well, I
say,
ask
"Oh, God"?
people, yeah, right now. I kind of wish, you know, I mean, interesting. The act of prayer is talking to oneself.
Right.
And so sometimes I will talk to myself, that
Yeah.
old song by Christopher Williams, but also if I need help, I will ask some of the people in my life,
Right.
who, for some help. And
Sure.
I may go Google, I may go look
Right.
to, I'm an avid music listener.
Right.
So I tend to listen to music a lot. There's usually some song or some words or lyrics that we can identify with no matter what we're going through.
Right.
And
Sure.
music captures every emotion and every feeling.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes I may ask for help from other people. Sometimes I may seek other sources, books, other information. Or sometimes I may just, or I can only speak for myself.
Right.
And I would think that there are other atheists who may do the same. But sometimes I may just, like I said, talk to myself. I may just talk it out. Sometimes I, what do you say? You're not supposed to talk to yourself. You can talk to yourself as long as you don't answer yourself. Well, sometimes you may find that. And there are times where we do feel hopeless. We don't always feel like everything is going okay all the time. There are times where we go through hard times too.
Sure,
We just may handle
sure.
it differently.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm just going to skip to the bottom one. When did you stop believing?
I actually never formally believed. I was raised in a
Okay.
pretty secular household.
Okay.
So I was never formally raised as a Christian,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I can say that I actually fully stopped believing in like spirits
Right.
or, supernatural things in 2010 when I
Okay.
reasserted my identity as an atheist. When I was 14 years old, one of my classmates in high school asked, was I atheist?
Right.
And I asked what that meant. The word didn't scare me. I just
Right.
asked what it meant.
Yeah.
And so I was told I didn't believe in heaven or hell. And at the time I said, well, that sounds about right.
Right.
Because like I said, my brain was always turning as a kid, and I used to think about what happens after we die and
Right.
such. And I could never reconcile that, oh, well, when I die, I'm just going to go to heaven. I just had too much thought behind it.
Sure.
Sure. And it was scary. It was
Uh-huh.
scary for me. And it was also, it was also just sobering because I didn't know.
Right.
And so I would say, yeah, I became comfortable with the fact that I didn't believe anymore in 2010 when I firmly asserted my identity,
Gotcha.
as an atheist.
Here's some questions. Or first of all, I'll bring this up. Are you familiar with any of these terms?
Yeah, intersectionality, code switching, for sure, yes.
And there's no test for this. I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
double
the question.
consciousness. I've heard of that before.
Du Bois,
but
he
yeah.
coined that phrase, essentially saying that black folks who you're in the house, you're one way, or on your family, you're another way.
Oh, that's
But when
code,
you
yeah.
leave and go to work, then you have to, put your tie on and walk a certain way. That's
Oh,
what double
yeah.
consciousness is.
Okay, because that almost
Basically,
kind
you're
of sounds
splitting.
like code switching too, but it's more of an amplified version
Exactly.
of that. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
But I had a guest on the show that they were talking about that, and I found that to be fascinating. Listen, ever since I've had this show, I've found a lot of different things to be fascinating. And so I think it's if I'm finding that it's fascinating, I think a lot of other people will find it fascinating too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because again, and I say it not on every show, folks, but just about every show, but this is that platform where we can go to and talk about any damn thing we want to.
Yes, it's
Forever, there's no time limit. There's no nothing. I don't give a damn what the topic is. It makes me no difference.
Right.
Because we don't typically talk about stuff.
right.
You and I kind of talked about that at the beginning. Well, there's certain things that may happen at the barbershop or at the salon. You talk about it. Once you leave there, it's dead. So, but at least here, people can talk about it. I'm hoping that people who are viewing will get some resolution on some things
Absolutely.
and come away with a better attitude, a better focus on some certain things.
Yes.
That's my hope, anyway. Here's a couple questions for you. What do you think about the political climate that we're in?
Oh boy.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Oh boy. It's charged for sure. Yeah. I think there were a lot of rude awakenings for a lot of people when President Trump when he was elected.
This is a huge wake-up call, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah.
I can't say that I'm surprised.
Right.
And I mean, am I disappointed that he was elected?
Yeah.
Surprised? Not really. And I always predicted that once Obama's term was up, that we would have a Republican president, because if you know anything about the party shifts in the presidency, it's par for the course.
It is. Yeah, it sure is.
So, figure we would have a Republican president after Obama served for 2 terms.
Right.
But who would be that president was,
I'll tell you what, he got a doozy.
Yeah. Yes. So things are very charged right now. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of activism now because people are getting angry.
Yep.
And people are, they're shocked. And I honestly think that there was a sense of comfort that came with Obama being president.
I'm glad you brought that up, because black folks people in general, but black folks who are comfortable don't do anything.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? We won't, if there's something wrong, really wrong, if we're comfortable, like, And
it shouldn't always take that.
I know. I agree.
It really shouldn't. I think that anger is a very good emotion to express, and there are times when we can use it.
Right.
And it's important for us to, but when it's the only reaction that we have, it really does, it speaks to the lack of long-term.
Exactly.
Because a lot of the stuff like that's in the, there's, we sometimes live by news cycles. It's in the cycle for a little bit. Then once it goes away, we forget.
Yep. Yeah.
But people don't realize that the work comes in when those cameras are off, or when the stories aren't being aired.
There you go.
That it must continue on the local levels.
Yeah.
And once Obama was
so
elected,
important.
they were ramping up their base.
Yep, for sure.
And so, and I can't say that I wasn't one of the folks who got somewhat comfortable.
Yeah.
But when it came time for those midterm elections, it was like, well, definitely got out there and voted.
Right.
But voting and participating in the local process is where it starts, and many people forget that.
What do you think that? Oh God, please smack me! I forgot her name. She ran for governor of your state.
Stacey Abrams.
Yeah. What do you think she's going to do next? Or what do you hope she does?
I hope she runs for governor again.
Again? Okay.
Because that race was pretty damn close.
It was tight
until they cheated.
Exactly.
She was cheated out of that.
Yeah.
Out of that, and she was cheated out of that governor's race, and it was so unfortunate. But for Georgia to be a primarily red state,
right,
for her to have come so close, it's showing there's a shift there. And
right.
That Andrew Gillum in Florida, he almost won as well.
Yes,
and there is a huge shift that is taking place.
It is,
and it's important that people take note that the fighting and and the pushing for people to get out there and participate in this process is not going in vain.
Right.
Because it's it's coming.
Right. Yep, I agree with that. I do hope too that I know last time a lot of women were elected to office up in the White House. I hope that continues. I hope there's a lot more women that get in there and do their thing, because even my girl, I can't think of people's name right now. Ocasio.
Yeah, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, that one.
AOC.
That's it. She is ruffling a lot of feathers, which is great.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And even, please help me out again, the other sister that who wears where's she from?
Omar, from Minnesota.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Representative Omar. Yeah.
They're just looking for a reason to try to get rid of her.
Yeah.
But we have to make sure that we support her.
Absolutely.
We got to support her.
Absolutely. This is not just, we've never been in a white country, and it definitely is not anymore. It is representative in who is in our representatives.
The browning of America.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also the browning in people taking power.
Right.
Because it was okay to have black and brown people as long as we stayed in our place.
Exactly.
But
that's exactly
people
right.
aren't doing that anymore.
No.
And actually using a system that was originally meant to be work against us using it in our favor. Which
Did you see 13?
I have not, but I am well aware of the, I read Assata Shakur's autobiography as a kid. And I'm sure it's very, very powerful. And
Mandisa.
yeah.
That shit'll piss you the fuck.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Ooh. What got
I'm
me?
a huge documentarian as well. I love documentaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What got me was the facts and figures that they kept flashing up on the screen.
Oh, prisons
I'm
are
sorry,
very
and
profitable.
I don't mean. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go off subject, but
No,
that was.
That also goes to Living While Black too.
It does. It
because,
does.
Yeah, it definitely speaks to these institutions that were, that were meant to keep folks oppressed.
Right.
So, absolutely, these things are important to discuss, and that also goes to intersectionality.
It does.
That as an atheist,
all of this is
these are things that
Yeah.
we that we need to be discussing.
Exactly.
That I don't have a divine premise to have a blinder.
Right,
That this is
right.
reality. This is what is going on in our world, and we need to address it.
Exactly. That's so true. How were you with Black Lives Matter? Me Too.
Well, Black Lives Matter has kind of always been a thing for me.
Right.
I just become concerned when things become trendy, that it doesn't fall away like the Occupy movement.
Right,
That
right,
people
right.
are
Yep.
strategically working together.
Yep.
And, I remember there were people who a couple of years ago were kind of pointing a finger at my organization, Black Nonbelievers, and saying, well, why aren't you focusing more on Black Lives Matter? Well, the answer to that is we have members who are Black Lives Matter activists.
Right.
And we support that. However, we can't save the world.
Right.
And
That's
so
true.
our organization really focuses on the atheists and people questioning religion who need that support, so that when they do have that support, they can focus more on other initiatives.
Exactly.
Like Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
And there is definitely, it has to go, it's all institutional.
Yeah,
and
it
there
is.
is a lot of, and this also goes back to what we said about people participating, in the civic process,
Right,
voting,
right.
getting involved,
That's right.
getting involved, making sure you know where your tax dollars are going and having a say and speaking up.
Yep.
Because, historically we've been taught that we don't have a say.
That's so true. That is so true.
We actually do.
We do.
And Me Too, Time's Up.
Which is why they try to suppress it. But go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but Me Too and Time's Up, definitely.
Yeah.
It's well past. And this also goes towards my stance on being expressing, advocating for open sexual expression and
Right.
liberation, that consent is an important part of the conversation and the actions, that people know what consent is, when it is being violated,
Right,
and the
right.
fact that, and also who it is, because in our communities, I was looking at some dialogue back and forth about Game of Thrones, right? That this is, of course, it's a lot of white people in it, and these are just things that white people do, which isn't true. And I know part of that is meant to be a joke,
Right.
but we often sweep under the rug the uncles and aunts and people in our family who were molesters,
Right.
and who committed heinous acts against
true.
young children. These are conversations that we don't have, or we're not having in a way, or we're blaming.
Yeah.
We're victim blaming
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
And there was very little to no accountability for the perpetrators. And so this is definitely past the time that, someone who is raped, it is not their fault.
Right.
And
right.
again, the conversations about sex, sexuality, consent, all of that, it's way past the time that these take place. And all
Sure,
of these things
yeah.
that people have been getting away with, primarily men in the
Oh, yeah.
workplace, and women who have been kept from certain jobs, or who have been harassed, or their sexuality has been questioned, or they've been prevented from getting certain jobs as a result. Yeah, that time is up.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So yes, I'm absolutely an advocate for that.
Here's an easy one.
Yeah.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Oh my gosh, that isn't easy. Well,
I
have
tried to lighten it up a little bit.
So I have to break this down. My
Sure.
favorite restaurant in the Atlanta area is Mary Mac's Tea Room. If you've ever been to Atlanta,
I have.
it's in the heart of Atlanta on Ponce de Leon Avenue, or Ponce de Leon. It's dubbed Atlanta's restaurant. It's that southern, southern
Really?
cooking. It's
Okay.
been around since the 40s, and the food is just amazing. Every time someone's in town, or if we have guests,
Right.
or even just as a family, we may decide to go. It's one of my favorite restaurants
Wow.
ever.
What's the name of it again?
Mary Mac's Tea Room. The
Mary
website
Mac's
is
Tea
called
Room.
marymax.com. You'll love it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So if you're in Atlanta, definitely let me know.
I'll
we
have to give you a
go.
call.
Tina
Yeah.
and I went there one time. We went there this past Labor Day.
Right.
And yeah, she enjoyed it too. And so it's just a really, really great restaurant.
Good.
The people are friendly there, and it's just and there are a lot of celebrities. You may see a celebrity or
Right.
two in there.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's one of my favorites. I love to. Yeah, if you can't tell, I love to eat. So, but anyway, but yeah. So, that's one of my favorites.
What's your favorite drink?
God. Alcoholic beverage?
I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, water actually is. Water
Okay.
is my favorite beverage ever.
Okay.
But if we're gonna go, see, these are just we're so complex. It's never just one simple answer.
Right, right.
It just depends on what I'm in the mood for. But I do love pina coladas.
Okay.
I do love Firefly sweet tea vodka is one of my favorites. You mix
What is
with
that
some.
again?
It's called
Firefly.
Firefly. It's a brand of a sweet tea vodka, and you mix that with some lemonade, and you just basically have an Arnold Palmer with a kick.
Right. Okay.
So yes, that is very, very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Favorite place to travel to?
Oh my gosh, that's another one. Well, it's now New Orleans. I had the opportunity to visit New Orleans for the first time in March. I was a guest with one of the local secular humanist groups.
Okay.
And actually, my maternal grandmother was from New Orleans.
Okay.
And so I never had the opportunity while she was alive to visit.
Right.
And so I enjoyed it so much that the family and I went back for spring break.
Oh, wow.
And lots of good food.
Yeah,
Lots
yeah.
of good entertainment. It's one of the jazz.
Right,
Got,
sure, yeah.
it got its rise there, start. So it's a very, it gets crowded, especially in the French
Yeah,
Quarter,
yeah,
Bourbon
yeah.
Street, but
Yeah.
there's always something going on down there, and it's an old city, but it's nice and it's pretty.
Yeah.
And I of course I hate what happened,
yeah,
during
of
the
course.
Katrina and unfortunately the displacement of so many people.
Absolutely.
But it's still just a very, very nice city, and I enjoyed it.
I have yet to
so
go.
Much.
I gotta go.
It is very, very nice. Minneapolis is another good city.
Really?
It's a nice city, especially in the summer. I was just there in February, and it was like -5 degrees, and it snowed. But and I'm from New York. I don't miss
That
the
is
snow.
not a temperature.
But yeah, it is.
Right.
it really is. But Minneapolis is also a very, very nice city, and so yeah, definitely
cool.
New Orleans is one of my new favorites.
What do you think we can do to make the world better?
Really learning how to empathize and understand other people. Too often we think of things from our own perspective,
Yeah.
and sometimes those perspectives can be very narrow. We often go by well, I think this,
Right.
and not trying to understand what the other person is saying or thinking and why they're thinking it.
Yeah.
And I'm not the wisest or smartest person in the world, but one of the things that I learned to do, even as a teenager, was to, and also having been a customer service professional, they teach us that, if someone is yelling at you, it isn't necessarily about you. It
Right.
could be something that they're going through.
Yeah.
And the same rings true for people in our lives, as well as what we may see on a broader scale.
Sure.
That
Yeah.
there are people who may be doing things and projecting something either from a personal nature or something that has come from a collective base. And so trying to understand as well as finding ways to resolve it can help. It doesn't mean that we can resolve everything.
Sure.
But being able to understand and being able to also offer a resource for people, that even if I can't help, here's someone or something that may be able to.
Makes sense. Yeah.
not, caring just beyond the surface, because it's easy to say, well, I'll pray for you, or, whatever. It takes more than that,
It does,
and
yeah.
sometimes the simplest actions are the best.
Right.
Sometimes it may mean you're just listening to someone and not always talking over them, or always just like inundating them or bombarding them with advice.
Gotcha.
And then also just having a more informed perspective and
Right.
more informed perspectives. And it doesn't mean you have to care about everything equally, and that's
That would
okay.
be tough to do.
Right. That's okay.
Yeah.
And just really, and it may seem simplistic. It isn't as simple as saying, "Oh, just don't worry, be happy." Even though I love that song by
Right.
Bobby McFerrin,
Right.
and I just love him as an artist too. But I digress.
Okay.
But understanding where people may be going through, understanding that you may not, and some people just may, like I said, they may just want that space
Right.
to be, and that's okay for that. It's okay for people to just be at times, and I think that would be a better way to. And also, too, I'm a huge proponent of just common courtesy, saying hello,
Right.
thank you. Sometimes a smile will help.
Yeah.
It doesn't resolve everything, but just trying to be good and decent to people, just on an everyday level.
Right.
No,
I get that.
and not just when it suits you, not just when you want something. Do it beyond your own self-serving purpose. Do
Absolutely.
it because it may be good for someone else.
Right.
So
Right,
yeah,
right.
those are just some of the, as I said, as an atheist and humanist, I try to live by those, the golden rules.
Right.
Try to do unto others, or treat people like you want to be treated and such, but then also treat people accordingly. But I think it starts with those basic principles, because then once you realize that we're in this world together,
Yeah, for sure.
it does help to it helps increase our empathy levels, and at least being mindful of how we interact with each other.
Wow. That was good.
Thank you.
That was very good. This last one doesn't apply to you, but it
Okay.
says, "What or who is God?" So that doesn't apply.
But it's so funny because Zora Neale Hurston has a quote. She said, "Gods always behave like the people who make them." So
my God,
it's
yeah.
just very interesting
Yeah.
how human-like a lot of these gods are.
Yeah. Hello.
God is a man-made or a human. It is a human invention,
Right.
and the human span of creativity, as well as it has changed over the years, and it is only as powerful as one makes it.
Yeah,
And for some
yeah.
people it is more powerful, for some others it isn't.
Sure.
And that is, that is a realization that there are many people need to come to.
Gotcha.
So yes, but I love
Wow.
that quote.
That's a good one. I like that. We are at the end of the show.
Oh, wow, that went by fast. That was fun.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
Did you have a good time?
I did. This
Seriously
was
good.
great. This
Good.
was a great conversation. And
Very
thank
good.
you for having me on. And thank you to everyone who is listening or watching live.
Yeah.
This was
There were several
amazing.
people on the live chat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did they have any questions or comments, or just
No questions. Great show.
Okay, cool.
At least you can say you're dedicated. I guess that was from Delroy Young.
Yes, that's
Okay.
one of my childhood friends.
Okay.
Yes.
That's really about it. Oh, sorry. The very first one says "Go Mandisa,"
Aw.
and that is from. Is that Michael McBride?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike.
Yep.
I just love my people. Yeah. I mean, I just love, all of my people.
Yeah. No,
It's
and you
like-
should. Yeah, you should. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is just great, and I just love having these candid conversations.
Yeah.
And it's I'm hoping that there's more of them.
Well, here's the
So,
thing
yeah.
too. This is your first time here, but it will not be your last time.
Oh, hey, that's totally fine.
Yeah. There's certainly some other things that we can talk about.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we'll figure that part of it out then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go through the programming stuff here. This week, on Friday actually, is Dana Frady. She runs the Guardian Ad Litem program. Are you familiar with Guardian Ad Litem?
I am familiar with the term, yes. People who are appointed guardians of children in absence or in the extreme situations of
That
their
is
parents.
not a fun job.
I'm sure it isn't. I'm sure. It's probably tied into like the foster care system or
I
stuff
think
like
all
that.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the thing of it is, the Guardian Ad Litems, they're not paid,
Wow.
and they can't be.
Wow. See, now I didn't know all that. That would be very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, they cannot be paid because they can't be seen as being biased in any way.
Right. Oh, okay. That is very interesting.
So yeah, that's the show on Friday. She's going to
Okay.
be here. We're going to be talking about that, which is going to be kind of cool. Let me talk about these other two shows that we have. One is called the Deluxe Podcast Show. These two ladies are crazy, and Tennille, excuse me, Lux Elizabeth and Katie Lux. Their show they talk about a number of things too. But their conversations are a lot lighter than
Okay.
what this show has.
Yeah.
I've been told that this show has the conversations here are very heavy,
Oh,
very weighted. I'll take that. I'm good with that.
right.
So, but yeah, these guys, their show is a much lighter version of
The
this
ladies, you mean? Yeah.
What did I
Gotta-
say?
You said guys. Well, you know.
Well, you
for-
know, yeah.
For the
Yeah.
for the people who
show. Yeah,
might.
yeah, those are my girls.
I try not to be one of those people, but you know.
Right. The other show that we have is Unapologetically Black with Lawana Mayfield. Lawana is she is a city council member, and she's been called a lot of names.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, which is awesome. But she doesn't mince words. She gets her point across. She makes sure that she's had one show so far. It was a very good show where they talked about body cams, police brutality. I mean, they talked about a bunch of stuff. But so now again, we have now 3 shows under this network, which is great. So folks, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. So I am looking. Some people think I'm crazy for doing this. I probably am. I'm looking for 3 more hosts. One that could that is a gamer, and it's more than someone who's great at running the console, and you can master the certain games, but you have to be able to talk about the industry of gaming, give some ideas or notes to parents that could be possibly they may have questions about certain games, things like that. Socio family based show that was. Have you ever been a caregiver? You know what a caregiver? That is not a fun thing either. I was a caregiver for my mom. She, before she passed away, but you're literally having to take yourself out of being that person's son or daughter, and now you're like a.
Well, I am a caregiver for sort of for my husband. He has sickle cell anemia. So, yeah.
If it's debilitating.
I take that back. I do know what a caregiver is.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, but looking for somebody that can host that show as well. News-based show is a news commentary-based show. Listen, I care about the local issues that are going on, but this show, I'm looking for preferably a black female that is very, very good, who's a wordsmith and can bring somebody on the show and really talk about things that are going on in the community.
Okay.
Or I shouldn't say community, in our region. So anyway, those are the 3 shows that I'm looking for. I've already had this guy up. I don't want to talk about him anymore. We do podcast rentals here as well. I'll just mention that. And here's the last slide right there. Folks, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate that. Mandisa, thank you so much for coming up to Charlotte.
Thank you for having me. This
And
was
I'm telling
a
you,
great show.
I'm glad you liked it. Seriously, I'm glad.
Yes, this was
But,
awesome.
this will not be your last time. And
Okay.
and listen, you could call me up and say, "Look, Steve, I have a great idea.
Okay.
Can I or we or whatever come on your show and talk about it?"
Okay.
Sure. Come
Okay.
on, let's talk about it. So, but folks, thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. And we'll just see you, I don't know, the next time. Friday. We'll see you
Yes.
Friday. Have a good one. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Stop it.